So today I'm sharing a watercolour lift technique using a clear embossing powder resist, and I'm going to show you how you can create different effects using different products, same technique but different products, and just to create some really interesting and fun backgrounds. So this is one of them, this beautiful brightly coloured one here. We've got a subtle vintage feel to this one. And then a couple of really nice sort of colourful bright designs at the end. So I'll move these out of the way and get myself set up, and I'll show you how to create these. So I'm all prepared to start. I've got a piece of mixed media cardstock here. This is 300 GSM, just cut from a large pad that I've got. It's a Faber-Castell brand if you're interested. Just cut into sort of 5-6 inch pieces, just manageable for making cards with. I've used some painter's tape just to tape it down to a piece of heavyweight cardstock, just to help prevent a little bit of buckling when we get it wet. I've got a selection of stencils. These are by Deco Art. This one's like some words. This one's a floral. This one's got a cog design. I've also got a couple of stamps. This one by Visible Image. And this is a background by Studio Light, one of the Art by Marlene backgrounds. Use whatever you've got, trial and error, see what you think's going to work. Just have fun. I've got some clear ink. This is a Wow embossing pad, clear ink pad. You could use Versamark like this one, work perfectly well. And some clear embossing powder. This pot is Stampendous clear transparent embossing powder. And lots of different products off to my side here for colouring. And I'm going to begin with some distress ink. And I've got Fossilized Amber and Hickory Smoke here. And I'm just going to blend the colours together over the surface of this cardstock, just using a foam applicator. Again, what I'm using today is not an exhaustive list. Anything really that is water-based, water reactive should work. So just try, see what you've got. We've all got probably some sort of water-based ink or paint, even if it is literally just a set of sort of children's watercolour paints. Have a go, see what happens. It's all about experimenting, it's all about having fun. You've really got nothing to lose by trying. And you could create some really interesting backgrounds. Obviously, to heat emboss this, we need this to be dry, and distress ink has quite an open drying time. So feel free just to use a heat tool to speed that process up. Now that's dry, I'm going to ink up this stamp. This is the Visible Image Ripple stamp. I'm just going to stamp randomly all over my inked background because I'm going to trim this to fit a card when I've finished. So now I'm going to sprinkle my embossing powder over the surface. And I've just got a scrap of paper here to catch the excess. So just give that a moment to cool down. And you can either use a paintbrush with some water, or this is just a spray bottle with some water. Just wet the surface. You want to be able to lift some of that excess ink off now. And just taking a piece of kitchen paper, we'll just blot away that excess. And as you can see, the embossing powder's trapped that distress ink underneath, and we've been able to lift the colour from the areas that are not embossed. So set that aside to dry, or just give it a blast with your heat tool, and then you can use it to create a project. So I'm just going to move it out of the way, and I'll get on with the next sample. Next I'm going to use these Dina Wakley Media scribble sticks. This is the original set 1, with the nice bright vibrant colours. I really love the colours here. But you know, there are lots of other water soluble crayons about. There's distress crayons, Neo Colour 2s, gelatos, lots of different things. Try them. If you've got them and they're water soluble, there's no reason why you won't get a result. So I'm just going to scribble stripes of colour, choosing which colours to use. Some nice bright warm hot colours. And I'm going to take a paintbrush, and this is just some clean water, and blend the colours with the water just to get them moving on the surface. If you think you want a bit more colour, you can go back in and add some more. I think I just want to make that pink a little bit more vibrant. And once again, before we go any further, we need to dry this, so I'm just going to use my heat tool. So this is completely dry, and this time I want to use this Dahlia stencil. This is an Americana Decor one from Deco Art. And I think I'm just going to place it in the middle. And I'm going to apply the ink pad just directly through and onto the cardstock, just pressing down. It can be a little tricky to see if you've got it all, but you know, when the light catches it, it'll be shiny, and then that's your clue that you've got all of the design. So I'm just going to sprinkle the embossing powder on and tap away the excess and heat it as before. And as you can see, that's all embossed on there. Just give it a moment to cool down again. And spritz with water as before. And as you can see, once again, we've got this beautiful silhouette where the stencil was, and we've lifted the colour from the background. Next up are some Dylusion ink sprays. I've got Vibrant Turquoise, London Blue and Lemon Zest here. And as we all know, if you've used any of the Dylusion sprays, they are water reactive. They will react again once they get wet. So I'm just popping this piece of card inside this box that I use for spraying, just to try and keep my work area tidy. I'm just going to spray a bit of the colour until I'm happy with the mix. And once again, just going to dry that off with my heat tool. Just make sure that's completely dry. And I'm going to use another stencil. This time I'm using this Deco Art Andy Skinner one with the cracked words on it. And just going to sort of position it where I think best. Again, doesn't matter too much. It's going to be cropped down anyway. And as we did before, I'm going to be applying the ink pad directly through the stencil. And heat with the embossing tool. And I hope you can see there where the light's catching the embossing. And as before, I'm just going to spritz with some water. You can see immediately how reactive these Dylusions sprays are. And they have a really, really cool effect. You get that nice sort of speckle in the background from the spray, but a really good lifting effect there because, as I say, these Dylusions sprays are so water reactive. While I've got my spray box still to hand, I'm going to have a go with some Distress Oxide sprays. And I've got Fossilised Amber, Fired Brick and Vintage Photo here. Giving them a bit of a shake. I'm just going to spray a generous amount onto our card. And again, I'm just going to give that a dry with the heat tool. You can leave it to dry naturally if you want to. Now that's dry, and as you can see, Distress Oxide's always dry, slightly paler. They have this more sort of dull, slightly chalky finish. I'm going to be using this stencil, so just going to decide where I want that. This is the Andy Skinner Deco Art stencil with some cogs on it. And adding the embossing powder. And once again, spritz with water. And blot. And as you can see, you've got this really nice sort of vintage worn effect. Very nice. So I'll set this one aside and we'll move on to what will be our final one for today. And the final sample I'm doing today is using these Lyra watercolour brush pens. Very similar to sort of the Tombow double-ended pens, or you could use the Zig Clean Colour. There's a few water-soluble pens around. These are double-ended. They've got a fine tip and a brush tip. And I'm just going to be using the brush tip to apply colour, much as we did with the scribble sticks, just in bands. Now to blend these, I'm just going to take my paintbrush again and some water and just allow that colour to move and blend out and just soften those lines. And I'll just dry that off. I'm going to be using this Studio Light Art by Marlene stamp. This is stamp BM12. And I could go and get my stamp press, but you know, I'm just going to use it as it is. So I'm going to ink it up, plenty of ink on it. And then just press that down all over. And apply our embossing powder for the final time. And finally, spritz some water on here again. And just blot up the excess. And as you can see there, another really cool, this time nice rainbow effect, but it's picked up all that nice detail of that background stamp. So I'm just going to clear all this out of the way. Make these up into a few quick finished projects and I'll be right back. And here are my finished cards. I've kept these really simple. I mean, you can use your backgrounds that you create in any way that you see fit. But I've used a mixture of some quick simple stamp sentiments or die cut sentiments, and this ripple design, I've just cut that into two, matted it on some grey and used a visible image sentiment there. This beautiful one here, I mean there's so much going on in the background there anyway. That's just a simple Crafter's Companion Gemini die cut sentiment, just glued in place. This lovely sort of vintage feel one with the cogs, I've used some Andy Skinner stamps with a steampunk definition and a little clock in the corner there, matted onto a bit of black card. This one, just, I mean, it's just so pretty on its own, just this flower. So again, use that Hello Gemini die just to set that off, die cut that in white, matted onto a little bit of coral card. And finally, this, you know, really pretty rainbow effect, just black sentiment. Again, this is another of the Crafter's Companion Gemini dies, matted onto a bit of black cardstock. Just nice and simple greetings cards, just to, you know, little notelets, pop in with a letter just to say hello to somebody. Of course, you know, you can use them for birthday cards, you know, Christmas cards, whatever you want, but just a few ideas there on how to use this fun technique. Lots of products to create the technique, lots of ways to use your finished background pieces. As always, if you enjoyed this, please leave me a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll be back again next week with another video. But for now, that's all. So goodbye.